Unless you've been living under a rock or your social media feed consists solely of pictures of cats and dogs, you have certainly seen the first image released by the James Webb Space Telescope in the last 24 hours. I'm here to react to that first image of the vastness of space as a scientist, but more importantly, as a Christian. So let's take a look into the unsearchable universe. My reaction to the first JWST image coming up. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope is the end product of a decade of hard work and billions of dollars to place a telescope in space that would give us the greatest resolution of the universe that we've ever had. It's a huge upgrade from the Hubble telescope, and the Hubble telescope was an incredible deal. It changed our view of the universe and has been our view of the universe for the last 20 years. And yesterday it was revealed, the very first image was revealed from the James Webb telescope, giving us our first look at just how much better our view of the universe is going to be over the next, hopefully, couple decades. And what we see here is just a snapshot of the deep, deep, deep universe. In other words, peering far back in time, taking one tiny slice of our vantage point here on Earth. And the way they described it was if you put a grain of sand on the end of your finger and held out in front of your face, and you peered through that grain of sand out into space, that's about the area that you're looking at. That's very hard to visualize, and I'll try to give you a better idea. Well, what I'll say is, if you had a big screen TV at home, and you imagined looking just at one single pixel, which you probably can't pick out a single pixel if you're sitting several feet away from it. But if you had just one single pixel from that TV, and then you zoomed into that one pixel, and you just kept zooming into that one pixel, making it larger and larger and larger and larger, until you got to the point where you had this vision that you have on the screen here. And inside that one pixel, there would be thousands of galaxies. Right, because that's what you're seeing in this picture are thousands of galaxies, not thousands of individual stars. There are a couple individual stars here. There are galaxies, which of course are filled with individual stars. So that one single pixel would be filled with this enormous amount of space in the universe. Now, I want to explore this image a little bit more, but to do so, I want to take us back and give us an appreciation for just how immense the universe is, which is a very difficult thing to do. I'll take my best stab at it. But what I'm really here for is to give you my reflections of how I feel as a scientist, but more importantly, as a Christian looking into the vastness of space. Why do I get so excited about looking at space, and what are some of the concerns? Now, Abraham was once told by God to look up into the sky and to count the stars. The idea being that obviously he couldn't count the stars, all right, even from what he could see, which is much less than we can see today. He wouldn't be able to count up the stars, and the idea was that his offspring would be uncountable, just like it's impossible to count the number of grains of sand on the seashore. Here we have Job in Job 35:5. Again, God is telling Job, look up into the heavens and see, and behold clouds, which are higher than thou, right? There are things above you, and there are things above even the clouds, the stars, which seem unfathomable and unsearchable. And so, who are you to be able to say that you understand these things? Now, of course, in our day and age, we say, oh, look, we have this telescope, and we can see farther and more than Job could or Abraham could. But do we really truly understand the whole universe? It's like we understand a little bit more of it, but the more we look and the farther we look back, the more immense the universe is and the more amazing the universe is. But let me wait a few minutes before I talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk about how we should think about the size of the universe. So let's go all the way back to Voyager 1. Remember the spacecraft from the late 1970s? A very ambitious project to go out and look at our solar system. So Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were sent off from the Earth, and this is their approximate path through the solar system. I believe both of them are still sending some signal back, but they're outside of our solar system. Incredible to think they're 14 billion miles away. And another way to think about this is they are 21. I looked this up this morning. Voyager 1 is 21 hours and 38 minutes in light distance from us. Meaning the signal that Voyager 1 is sending back takes 21 hours and 38 minutes to reach us. So we are looking back. When we receive that signal, we're looking back essentially 21 hours to where Voyager 1 was when they sent that signal. That's an amazing, to me, incomprehensible distance, 14 billion miles away. And yet that's really nothing, right? Because this solar system, just being, 50 light minutes across, is nothing like the distance to the closest star. All right, for Voyager 1 to travel to the closest star, that's going to be 4.246 light years, all right, from us. And light travels 186,000 miles per second, and so you can do some calculations and figure out that's a whole long way away, and it's certainly not going to, Voyager 1 at the speed it's traveling now is not going to make it anywhere near close to the closest star, Proxima Centauri. But the distance to the closest star, that's just our nearest neighbor inside of our galaxy, the Milky Way. Milky Way is estimated to be about 105,000 light years across. So the closest star to the sun, all right, so if we're out here, and we're actually on one little arm of the Milky Way, and we have stars around us, and they're several light years away from us. So enormous distances from us. We're 28,000 light years from the center of our own galaxy. And the whole galaxy across, light from the most distant star on one side of the galaxy, for it to travel to the other side of the galaxy would be about 105,000 years traveling at light speed. Right, so a single galaxy is an enormous thing. Again, for our minds, it's really not possible to comprehend these kind of vast numbers. But let's go back to this James Webb first image. And now I've blown it up a little bit. And we're now peering very, very far into the past and at a very long distance from the Earth. And what we're seeing is all of these things are galaxies. There's a variety of different kinds of galaxies here with different shapes, different sizes. But let's just say that the average galaxy here is similar in size to the Milky Way, which means that what you're looking at here is probably 100,000 light years across in terms of distance and the amount of time it would take for light to travel that distance. These things here are all stars. Those are individual stars, and they're so bright because they're actually very close to us. Now, very close could mean several thousand light years away, but those are stars that are in our own galaxy. So remember, we're inside of this cluster of stars, and we're trying to peer out of our Milky Way. And so as we look out through it, it's a little hard to avoid, some star being in the way, since there are 100, potentially 100 billion stars just in our own galaxy. And so as we look out beyond our galaxy, there's going to be a few stars in the way. Now, the James Webb Telescope, they're actually trying to point to an area that tries to avoid concentrations of stars in our own Milky Way. So in many places, it would be very difficult to see out into the rest of the universe without a lot more obstruction of our own stars. And so they're very, very bright, but this is a single star. Whereas what's behind it here, or what looks to be next to it here, is a galaxy. So if a galaxy is, let's say that's 100,000 light years across, and has 100 billion stars. For it to look this small and less bright than this star, you know this galaxy's a lot farther away, right? It's really way, way behind this particular star. So much farther. In fact, it's considered to be somewhere between 4 and 10 billion light years farther away than that particular star in front of it. And so these galaxies then are at different distances. And so they're not anywhere near as close together as they might appear. But the whole point here is that if this is 100 light years across, and this is 100 light years across, what's the distance from here all the way over to here? And I'm only showing you 1/3 of the overall picture that was taken, which, remember, is like looking at one pixel on your TV screen and zooming in on it. You're looking across here at a several 100 million, right, light years of distance across your screen as you're looking at these galaxies. I want to look at something else that's always amazed me and that I've written about in the past. It had been estimated prior to this image. And I think this image is going to just increase the estimates, because what's happened here is looking at the same place in the universe with the Hubble telescope and now looking at it with the James Webb telescope, we're seeing about twice as much as what we saw before. So we're seeing more galaxies that didn't even show up on the Hubble telescope image because it didn't have enough resolution. So we're seeing farther back in time. We're also seeing some smaller galaxies potentially that we couldn't see before. But it was estimated at that time there were between 10 sextillion and 1 septillion stars in the universe. Right? And those numbers are just like, again, numbers that just sound like goofy numbers. How do we possibly understand those? Those are numbers that are followed by 22 to 24 zeros. So I've just written it out on the screen. That's a whole lot of stars. All right. And to go a little bit further, it's now apparent that there's at least as many planets as stars in the universe. Many of the stars in our own galaxy have solar systems with multiple planets. And that is likely to be true of all other galaxies. And so you can start adding up numbers like there's probably 8 to 10 billion planets and those are just planets that are the size of the Earth and are in particular zones around stars that we'd call the habitable zone, just meaning temperature and the nature of the matter on those particular planets. Just in our own Milky Way galaxy. 8 to 10 billion planets times maybe another 10 billion planets, or 10 times that number if you want to consider the number of gas planets. So extrapolating out to the universe, that would give us 80 to 400 quintillion Earth-sized planets in our universe. Right? So writing that out again, we get a mind-boggling number of planets. And as I said before, there'll probably be 10 times as many total planets as there are that are like Mercury and Saturn and gas giants. So there are sextillions of planets in this universe. What are we to make of this vast place? And when I say what are we to make of that vast place, I'm now speaking as a Christian, mostly to other Christians. You know, rather than being exceedingly unlikely that there aren't any other planets, right? That there are now more planets than there are stars in this universe. And that makes our planet and our solar system, to put it mildly, not all that unique, at least not as unique as we like to think it is. There are septillions of stars and planets, and that we are part of just one galaxy among millions, and the great distances between stars and galaxies, you know, that brought challenges to those in the past that believed the Earth was the physical center of God's creation. Right? How special could man be as part of creation? Initially, there was denial of the physical shape of the universe, right? Hundreds of years ago. But over hundreds of years, Christians came to see the universe once again as attesting to the majesty of God's creation. Rather than the expanse of the universe making man look like a mere speck, all right, of dust, Man can be understood as the center of God's interest in creation, and thus, in a way, even more special compared to the rest of the large universe, right? God has placed us in this vast universe and communicated to us directly, right, through his word and the coming of Jesus Christ. God has given us this vast playground to explore. That's the way I think of it as. With wonders that will never cease to amaze. I mean, how could we possibly explore this entire universe? Every time we build something new and peer farther out, we're going to find something that we've never seen before, right? The further we look, the more we see. Despite its size, we've been told that God has made man with him in mind, right? When he created the universe. He's created man in his image out of all the things in the entire creation and cared for him. The more we discover, the more amazing this fact should be. Unfortunately, many challenges to Christian doctrines have been self-inflicted. It's not been uncommon in the past for man to say that scriptures require much more than's actually there. Our human nature presses us to want answers to all of our questions. And then to believe that scriptures have all those answers to the questions. And so we quickly read our desired answers into scripture and consider all other avenues of inquiry closed, right? We've got the answer. We no longer need to seek for any true answers or new answers. As a result, Christians at times have placed the earth at the physical center of the universe, right? Or at the center of the solar system and taught that this is a required belief for all true Christians, right? True Christians. We have interpreted the scriptures to say that the earth does not move, and thus the continents might not even move. With respect to the universe, we have emphasized our special place among the stars and said that the earth is absolutely unique and specially made for man. While I believe the latter to be true, has God actually told us everything about his creation, or only the things that we need to know about its creator and its purpose? Do we need to know the only place in the universe where life exists is here on earth? Is that revealed in scriptures? Today, some Christians are again faced with another paradigm shift because they have put themselves into a self-inflicted interpretive box. So what about this idea that man is at the center of the universe? Today, some Christians are faced yet again with making another paradigm shift because they have put themselves into another, I'll call it, self-inflicted interpretive box. By putting man at the center or at the pinnacle of God's creation, even if they have given up on him being at the physical center of creation, many still assume that our solar system and our planet in particular is a very special place. It's unique and can't exist anywhere else in the universe. A common, strictly literalist reading of the creation account in Genesis seems to suggest that God created the entire universe in an instant and then took one piece of that creation, a formless and void chunk of matter, and formed it into a suitable habitat for man. By inference, then, the earth must be a special place with properties that would be expected to only be found here on this particular earth and not be found anywhere else in creation. This, what's called a fine-tuning argument, has been around for hundreds of years. And because this is the only place made for living things, it's proposed that we can find evidence of God's design by comparing this world to other worlds. But what if there are septillions of other similar worlds? And what if God created, by supernaturally or by natural means, life there as well, however you want to define life? Sometimes Christians have had the tendency to act as if all creation was made just specially for man. This results from the dominion mandate and the attention God places on man's creation in the second creation account, which places man at the center of attention. That account tells us of a creation of a being that can reflect upon God's creation and appreciate it for what it really is, the handiwork of God. And of course, that being us, right? Being able to think about our Creator and being able to interact with the Creator in some ways. We are a created being that can be a creative force We are being made in his image. We create, and we are creating tools now for examining the universe and the world around us in ways that no other part of the creation can do to reflect upon God, its creator. But man has taken these truths and distorted them, putting himself on a pedestal, seeking to worship himself as the ultimate pinnacle of creation. And I'm talking about Christians, I'm talking here about Christians doing this. Man has been tempted to want to see all the creation as just being about man. But did God create the vastness of this universe for us or for his own glory? Probably both. And we're only just now being able to explore that glory of that creation. But what about for the, we'll say, thousands of years past in which we never saw these, which man never saw these galaxies before, or if you want to say billions of years before, in which man wasn't even around to see those galaxies? What were they for at that time, other than for God's glory? Consider a tiny moon circling a planet that circles a star that we can't even see today, on the other side of the universe. Has this been created with us in mind? Has this been created for man? Is all the universe made strictly just for man and man's use, and with man in mind? Much of the universe will pass away, all right, without a single person ever setting their eyes upon it or being aware of its existence. Even on Earth, there are species that have lived in the depths of the ocean that have gone extinct well before man even had the capacity to find them. And they will never be known to man because they have left no trace of their existence. It has been to God's good pleasure that he has created a universe via means that have resulted in the formation of solar systems very much like our own. It has been my impression that many Christians have long resisted the idea that there could be other planets in the universe other than those in our own solar system. And I'm really not sure why. Maybe because it seems to strike against the feeling that our solar system must be special. Maybe it's because the scriptures do not speak of other worlds. But this is an argument from silence, and our knowledge of the solar system should give us pause to how we should read scriptures as a message about exoplanets. Mars and other planets of the solar system are not mentioned in the creation account either, but they would be counted as visible points of light or stars, right, in that particular account. Yeah, I'm aware that John 10:16 speaks of Jesus having sheep. They're not of this particular pen, and that he must bring them to him. And this has been interpreted by some as a reference to life on other planets. I don't think there's any merit to that particular interpretation of that passage. I think the Bible is silent to the question of life elsewhere in this universe. Some Christians have found the fine-tuning argument for the existence of the universe and our planet, as promoted by, say, astronomer Fred Hoyle in 1959, to be very compelling. This argument suggests that only Earth has formed or was created from nothing, with special attributes that are exactly right for Earth. Earth has been thought of by many Christians to be so perfectly created that there could not be another Earth because life was formed here on Earth. And there could be no need for conditions like that anywhere else, since life doesn't exist anywhere else. So the existence of septillions of Earths, or Earth-sized planets, circling other stars in places that we'll maybe never see in this universe, certainly that has to be disconcerting to some who have placed their idea or faith or confidence in this idea that the Earth is special and unique compared to all the other places in the universe. So then what do we make of all these planets? 8 to 10 billion planets, possibly similar to the Earth, just in our galaxy alone. How do Christians respond? As I said earlier, some have assumed or either hoped, based on their preferred reading of Scripture, that there would be no other planets at all, but it's very clear there are other planets. Now, as I was saying, for the most part, Christians have come to accept the reality of the vast number of exoplanets. Of course, the more sensitive theological issue is the question of life on other planets, either in the solar system or exoplanets around other stars. For now, let me say I don't know if there's life on other planets. I won't say that there can't be, and I won't say that there must be. I don't believe the scriptures can be used to argue definitively one way or the other, although I do believe a strong argument can be made that man, created in the image of God, is unique in the universe. If evidence of life similar to that here on earth is found to exist elsewhere, it's not going to shake the foundations of my faith, because I have not tied my faith to an expectation of exactly how God created life in this universe. I'm not denying that God hasn't told us some very explicit things about his creation. He has. What I'm emphasizing here is that I'm not trying to hold my fellow Christians to articles of faith that aren't explicitly taught in the scriptures. Rather than be bound by the baggage of expectations for what the universe must look like, this frees me to express my amazement in his creation, rather than be in constant fear of what scientists might find next. Scientific exploration of the universe is not a threatening exercise, but one which takes us to greater and greater appreciation for this temporal, physical place that we call home. I hesitate to stop here. I also hesitate to continue. This is a complex topic, and I don't wish to oversimplify it. For now, I would have you observe that the discovery of planets and the vast number of stars in our universe, the sheer size of space and the heavens and the earth that God has created, should not be any more challenging to the Christian worldview than the very first realization that any of the points of light in the sky were not stars, but actually planets, such as Mars and Venus in our own solar system. I'll end by repeating something I said earlier. God has provided us a vast playground to explore with wonders that will never cease to amaze. The further we look, the more we see. Despite the unfathomable size, God had man in mind when he created the universe. He has cared for him and created man in his image out of the things of his entire creation. The more we discover, the more amazing this very fact should be. Thanks for listening. I'll be back to talk about this image and other JWST images that are going to come out today. And I want to relate those specifically to some of the claims of young earth creationism, but we'll leave that to another time. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.